Hey dorks, welcome to King Dungeon Master. That's me. My name is King, and I'm a dungeon master. I might save this voice for a goblin necromancer. Sorry to leave you hanging there. I know I promised my 2 subscribers an update following my Sunday session. So I recorded a video that morning, then I had a session with my Aquamara group, and then I was going to do a post-mortem. And I'll tell you something I learned about myself on Sunday. I don't have it in me to do a video and then a session and then another video. So it's Wednesday, midweek. I'll let you know how that session went and how I'm prepping up for a session with my other group of Thaldor coming up on Saturday. Would you like to come with me on that little ride? Here we go. So with Aquamara, what this video is really about, I hope you haven't clicked away yet. But what this video is really about is, it is, again, I guess the next in, I suppose, a series about preparation, too much, too little. What do you do when they, take a wrong turn, as it were? Well, I had a bunch of stuff prepped for Aquamara where they were going to come bamfing into this, kind of twin island city-state of, the center of the dynasty, so Mara Prime and Mara Secundus. And I'm sure I remember them saying at the end of last session that they were going to bloop, into, Mara Secundus. And so I had a whole thing prepped about it because it's been taken over by this, daughter of the Queen of Air and Darkness, and all the nobility have been swept up in this kind of, fairyland, soul stealing, party yourself to death thing. And I to the point of, reskinning a couple of monsters in that flavor to have, kind of have combat semi-prepped, the whole thing. Do they go to Mara Secundus? No. They go to a previous location, kind of a safe harbor-ish, where they're going to send some messages to some people that they know, and then they're going to decide where they go, and they decide to go to Mara Prime, which is fine, because like I was saying in the previous video, if you know broad strokes what's going on in your world, and I mean know it, like that's the part that should be fluent in your mind, and that's where journaling comes in. Write about, not the details. Don't resist the temptation to get too finicky about this particular name of this person as an advisor to that person who blah blah blah. You're never going to remember all that. So deep structure, the bones of your world. So when they do go somewhere you're not quite ready for, I've got some ideas about Mara Prime, some things that I've thought about and journaled about. So they come bamfing in, and I kind of improv'd right there at the table that they met up with a connection that one of the characters has, in this world. So what's she been up to? She's been, dodging bullets, so to speak, and is part of a resistance movement. And I just straight up, they even said it, and this isn't a bug, it's a feature. I even, they're led off to, to the headquarters through the streets. I get to add a little bit of flavor of, what's happened to the city since they've been gone. It's been under siege by these dragons, so it's just rubble everywhere. Really good flavor stuff. There were some good scenes in there. And they go running off to what effectively is the literally underground base of the resistance. And the way I described it, this was very deliberate. This is what I had in my head. I just pictured, Yavin 4, and kind of that hive of activity, and screens and people arguing about things and tables full of maps, and I just described that without saying Yavin 4, as in as much detail as I could muster. And then one of my players was like, "Oh my god, it's the rebels." I'm like, yes, that is the connection you should be making. Sure, you're stealing from another source, but imagine or try to appreciate how much cognitive load has been taken off of your mind, because these are archetypes, right? So just identify the archetype, plunk it into your story, and I guarantee you your characters, your players, will both recognize what you're stealing from, which is fine, but they care about this being their world as well. They want their character to fit into this world, so they will reskin it in their mind, so you can picture Yavin 4, but no, this is fantasy land. So it's crossbows and swords and dragonborn and orcs and all of that in there, instead of Luke and Leia and the gang fueling up some X-Wings. So they go off to Mara Prime. And it doesn't, boy, whenever you do these kind of blow by blows, like what happened in the session, it's a little bit of a D&D thing. I just saw a short on this, where basically like the husband is trying to describe to the wife like what he's been doing for the last 4 hours, and what his team managed to do was open a door. And so more was achieved here than opening a door. But it really was kind of a setup episode, because what's going to happen next is, I mean, this is what they've said they're doing, and they've kind of made a commitment to this Rebel Alliance and this resistance movement is, and I didn't see this was going here, but I, kind of did a little bit of the math, and I think I can actually make a balanced encounter out of it. They're going to go fight a god. They've decided to take on Umbral, who they now know for sure is the brother of the Daystar, and he's kidnapped. So the Daystar is supposed to be the god of the dynasty in Mara Prime, but his brother got all jealous of him, came in, trapped him in a little pocket dimension, and now Umbral is trying to, manipulate things on this world to take over the world, because it's going to be a good resume piece for him to become a true deity. Like, there's small g gods, and then there's deities in my world. The deities are the real ones who like kind of dream everything into existence. Anyway, so they're going to go fight a god, and I've threatened, I kind of want to keep them, a little bit on edge. You want your players to feel that there are some real stakes. No character has died in this story yet, and they're at level 14 now. This isn't a good thing for a dungeon master to do as a matter of habit, but as what I think will be an important story beat is, I do intend, and that's the part dungeon masters shouldn't do. You shouldn't go into a combat encounter intending to do this unless you've got a narrative reason for it. But I do intend for, I don't know which one, but one of the characters to die. I want to kill somebody in this one. I think we've reached that point where they need to feel some loss, and I think it's going to be everything that I need to propel kind of the final act of this story, the last 5 levels. So this is a great group that I play with, and we've been playing together for a few years now, and for 3 years running, 3 past years, I think we were on our 3rd one, we do this thing called Nerd Camp, where on the August long weekend, we find a cottage that will accommodate us all, and we go and we play D&D, and we, hang out in a hot tub, we go swimming, we have fires. It's Nerd Camp, right? Just, so we get like, it's not all D&D all the time, because we have, our spouses and partners and hangers on, come as well, so they need something to do as well. But we play a lot of D&D. And so we've got another one of those coming up this year, and I think it is timed such that I will be able to end this campaign at this year's Nerd Camp. I think it's going to be like level 20 and epilogue at Nerd Camp. I'm already looking forward to it. I kind of want to keep it to, if I level them up kind of once per session. I do milestone leveling, by the way. I don't mess with experience points. I mean, if you do that, it's fine. I don't want to yuck your yum, as they say, but I don't. I like milestone leveling. I think it's much more in keeping with treating the game more like a story than a game, which is the way I prefer to look at it. So I'm setting Aquamara up to go fight a god, and they'll probably win. I'm not great at balancing encounters, if I'm being honest, but I'm going to try to balance this one so it's dangerous, like deadly dangerous, but achievable. Or maybe they don't win, and like 2 characters die, and they need to flee the field, and I'll allow them to do that. But boy, it's going to be good. In the meantime, I've got Thaldor coming up. I'm already running out of time here. I'm trying to keep these videos short. So a quick introduction to Thaldor, and I'll do another video later on this week. My final prep for that one, and give you some context to the world. The world is pretty simple, rustic fantasy. It is a bound kingdom. Like, nobody's ever gone over the mountains to the north, or across the sea to the south, or the deserts to the east, kind of thing. So it's a bound realm of Thaldor, in which there are different, kind of provinces, if you will, or territories. So I've been able to set up a complicated enough factional kind of a scene, like a little bit of history. So the main thing about Thaldor, here's all you have to remember for today, and then I'll add a little more on next time, is for a long time now, the dominant political and cultural and even religious body of Thaldor has been this thing called the Stillness, and their main value is actually keeping civilization from advancing past right about where it is now, which is to say like rustic fantasy level. So very, very agrarian, low tech, no steam engines, no printing presses. I'm kind of pulling, just hang on here. I like a little actual history in my game. So I don't know if you guys know this dude Neil Ferguson, but he's got this like why this is just basically a big treatise on why the West has been in ascendancy for about the last 500 years or so, and he unfortunately calls them the I think five killer apps, which is just a really dated term now. But things like property ownership and scientific inquiry, and and for Thaldor, I'm adding into this steam engines and printing presses. There are certain forbidden things that people aren't allowed to do because the stillness, and this is a spoiler for my players, so hey, when, and it works pretty well. The stillness aren't wrong about this. They keep everything limited because once a civilization gets to a certain degree of power, then gods and powerful beings and aliens and what have you start to notice, and no good ever seems to come of that. So that's been going on for a while. Now the main plot, the point at which they are in the story, is that the main conflict that I had set up was that the Lich Queen had this plan that she would kind of sell a mercenary force secretly, like they would, there's a whole thing like who knew she was the Lich Queen, who was in on it, but she would get her army in, her army of loyal followers would be the mercenaries for the stillness, and that they would enforce their laws. What that army wound up doing was, instead of going down and like to one of the little villages and like say, hey, hey, no advanced political systems for you, and then shut it down or whatever, they were just burning entire villages to the ground, kidnapping all the villagers, bringing them to conversion chambers and turning them into a larger army for the Lich Queen so she could take over the world. So the party are at the point now, they're level 8, I think now, and I didn't plan for it to happen this quickly. This was going to be the arc that would take them all the way to the end and fight the Lich Queen at the end. But yeah, just the way the story went is they kind of smashed up the conversion chambers. I was like, okay, well, I kind of wanted to take this another direction now. So this little pocket, this little intro, this next session, this this other campaign, I think the main lesson for you DMs out there, just people who are interested in seeing how the sausage is made, you're going to be tempted every now and then, probably, I was, especially as a new DM, no, not especially, even now, just as much, you'd be tempted to reboot campaigns. You kind of get tired of, the premise that you set up, and you're like, oh, I don't really know where this story is going to go now, and then the temptation is like, your character's only made it to like level 5 or whatever, you're just like, let's start a new campaign. I wanted to do that I did that a couple of times, and it's not good for your players. It's not a nice thing to do. They want to take their characters all the way to level 20, get that wish spell, get, whatever it is they're after. So sticking with a story is a good thing. But what you can do, and what I'm planning to do for Saturday's session, and I've already set it up in the previous session, is you can reboot within your own world. You can... I think one of my players actually said it best at the end of the last session. There was, I don't know about confusion. People were sort of like making some meaning out of what had just happened, and one of my players said something to the effect of like, "Oh, we've gone from being at the top of this level to being at the bottom of the next stage," and I couldn't have put it better myself. That's exactly it. They are stepping into, at level 8 or 9, stepping into this. Oh, the world is much broader than they thought it was. What was the stillness trying to protect the world from, really? These gods and interdimensional beings and aliens and what have you. So you can do a reboot within your world. Do a time jump, 5 years later, and the entire political scene is completely different, whole new context. So you can reboot from a political game into there's been a rebellion and a civil war. Now you've got a run and gun, kind of a war game. Anyway, more about that later. As always, gone over time. Yeah, I hope you're getting something out of these. It's helpful for me to kind of talk it through. Ideas have been popping while I've been talking to you. I'm going to go straight to my journal after I hit stop on this, and then post the video later. So hey, get in on the conversation. My favorite thing is comments. I'm never, hand on my heart, Scouts on, I'm never going to ask you to like or share or subscribe or whatever. But oh man, the comments, like, just like, let's get a conversation going. I love that element of this platform. Ideally, I hope to see you at the table. And until next time, later.